Hello everyone, welcome to ENbreezEN, the daily current affairs program by Team Enlight. In today's session, we shall be discussing 4 topics. First one is point of disorder, undermining the parliamentary democracy. It is nothing but the explanation of today's Hindu editorial. The editorial talks about how disruptions in the parliamentary floor, the repeated lack of parliamentary scrutiny and the suspension of MPs is actually undermining the parliamentary democracy. Second topic for today is man-animal conflict, which is essentially a mains topic, but we shall be dealing with certain prelims elements as well. Third one is India joins G20 Troika, which is a prelims topic, and lastly EUs Global Gateway project. So let's quickly move on to our topics. As I already mentioned, point of disorder is nothing but the Hindu editorial which speaks about the disruptions of the parliamentary proceedings as well as suspension of MPs is equally undermining the parliamentary democracy. Okay, so this comes from the point where 12 of the Rajya Sabha MPs were recently suspended by the chairman for the entire winter session of the parliament. So the editorial accuses the party in power or the government for the use of disruption of proceedings as a parliamentary tactic, okay, to bypass the parliamentary procedures. So what the editorial says is that for every government, for every parliamentary type of government, there is a guiding principle in which the government which is in power, which is the majority, will have its way, whereas the opposition, which is a minority, will have its say, that is, they will be heard. But according to the editorial, this principle is violated in India since years. They are saying since 2014. So what it says is that on the pretext of disruption of parliamentary proceedings, the opposition has been pinned down, they are silenced, most of the bills are passed in a hurry and even in the midst of chaos, and the scrutiny of bills by committees and debates over them are considerably less. Okay, so the general the solution to the disruption of this proceedings is nothing but the suspension of those MPs whose conduct is bad. But what the editorial says is that the decision to suspend the MPs is not solving the problem because the punishment is only worsening it or worsening the conflict, and it is not actually facilitating any kind of debate. Okay. It says that the trend of weakening the process of keeping executive accountable to the legislature in the name of efficiency, it is actually undermining the democracy. It is not just actually undermining the democracy, but it is keeping the government or landing the government in a very dangerous position. In a very dangerous position. For example, you can think of the recent farm laws. Okay, the issues associated with those farm laws is a good example to understand that, and as a result of which it is or they are repealed recently. The editorial ends saying the emphasis, or the editorial ends by emphasizing on the need for debates. It says that the debates is actually, or it actually showcases the measure of the public mood. Okay, it is actually a measure of what the public is actually thinking about the government and their activities. And it also says that the absence of opposition, it is only helping the government. It is leaving the government even more unchecked because it helps the government in bringing in more controversial bills like the labor codes or the farm laws. Okay, so with this topic, it would be good if we can prepare on these 2 topics, that is the disruption of parliamentary proceedings and the lack of debate, as well as the parliamentary scrutiny. You can either club these 2 topics and prepare on them, or prepare on them separately. Okay, so in a mains perspective, the disruption of parliamentary proceedings and the lack of debate, you can check what are the reasons for that, what are the impacts or what are the effects of a lack of debates and the repeated disruptions in the parliament, and what is the way forward for that. For example, if you talk about the impacts, we can say due to this repeated disruptions, the government is resorting to more ordinances, or most of the laws are passed as ordinances. And we can also say that the executive, or it is a chance for the executive to evade from their responsibility and accountability because there is no debate happening. Moreover, it also aids for the hasty passage of controversial bills which have serious societal impacts. We have already said about the farm laws and the labor codes, etc. And all these are actually undermining the representative democracy. So similar fashion, you can prepare on what are the reasons for these disruptions and what is the solution for that. And similar is the topic parliamentary scrutiny. that also you can prepare on the heads like significance, what are the existing issues and what are the way forward. For example, if you talk about the issues, we can say most of the bills are not referred to the parliamentary standing committees for the scrutiny. So declining bill referrals to the committees is one issue, and most of the matters are bypassed, most of the matters of public importance. Okay, in the backdrop of urgency or the argument of urgency, most of the matters of public importance is being bypassed by the ruling party. And we can also say about the partisan role of the speaker, that is, it is the discretion of the chair to pass the matter to the committees. So the partisan role of speaker is also causing troubles and disruptions of the question hour. So all these are issues existing in the parliamentary scrutiny. So you can prepare on these two topics, that is, a disruption of parliamentary proceedings and lack of debate, as well as the effectiveness of parliamentary scrutiny in a mains fashion. Okay. So moving on to our next topic, that is the man-animal conflict. So in Hindu, there is a news which says Ministry of Environment and Forest says that around 1160 elephants were killed in the country in the last decade due to unnatural causes, mainly due to electrocution, train hits, poaching, poisoning, etc. So as per the details, it says due to electrocution almost 741 elephants were killed, and train hits it's about 186, due to poaching about 169, poisoning 64. So all these data shows that 1160 elephants were killed in the country. So from a prelims point of view, since this news is about elephant, we'll talk about the Asian elephants. Okay, so Asian elephants, there are 3 subspecies to it, which are Indian, Sri Lankan and Sumatran. The Indian, the IUCN status is endangered, and its habitat is the forest, tropical and subtropical forest, shrubland, grasslands, etc. Almost around 28,000 of elephants is found in India and 25% of them in Karnataka. So most number of elephants in India is found in Karnataka. They come under the Wildlife Protection Act 1972 Schedule 1, and they are keystone species. I hope you all know what is keystone species. So what are the initiatives for the protection and conservation of elephants in India? So these are the major initiatives. Okay, we know there is Project Elephant. It is a centrally sponsored scheme. It was launched in 1992. Okay, why? To protect elephants, their habitat and corridors, to address the issues of man-animal conflict, and also the welfare of captive elephants. So the Ministry of Environment and Forest and Climate Change provides a financial and technical support to the major elephant range states in the country through this project. Okay. Now next we have elephant corridors. More than 100 elephant corridors in India. In India there is more than 100 elephant corridors according to the Wildlife Trust of India. When it comes to elephant reserves, there are 10 elephant ranges which houses almost 32 elephant reserves. Okay, next is the internationally acclaimed program, that is a MIKE program. So MIKE was established by CITES, resolution adopted at the COP10 in 1997. MIKE is an international collaboration that measures the level, trends and causes of elephant mortality. In India, there are 10 MIKE sites. Okay, it is entirely dependent on donor support. The European Union has been the most important donor of MIKE program in Africa since 2001 and in Asia since 2017. Okay. And then we have many campaigns like the Hathi Mere Sathi, Gaj Yatra, Elephant Task Force. There is an elephant census that is happening every 5 years. So all these are the initiatives in India for the conservation and protection of elephants. Now coming to the GS3 aspect of this news, that is a man-animal conflict. You can prepare on the heads like reason. What are the reasons for man-animal conflict? What are the impacts and what is the way forward? So according to a report by the World Wildlife Fund for Nature and UNEP, it says that man-animal conflict or the killings related to man-animal conflict, it has caused about 75% of the world's wildcat species dead, polar bear, Mediterranean monk seals and large herbivores such as elephants. So almost close to 75% of the animals are killed, or they have lost their life due to man-animal related killings. Okay, now what are the reasons? there are plenty of reasons. We can say the encroachment of human beings into the wildlife habitats is actually pushing them to come out of their habitats. Then the accidents due to urbanization and developmental activities, that is roads, rail, other infrastructure projects that we undertake in the forest areas, is also disrupting their environment or their habitat. Then we can say the diversion of forest lands, right? Most of the forest lands of the protected forest is converted to agriculture and horticultural lands. That is also causing habitat loss for the animals. Then we can say unscientific forest management practices is another issue. Irresponsible tourism is one other important factor. Then we can say the infestation by invasive species like the lantana camara and all, because they are not preferred by the animals as food. So depredation of the agricultural lands, they come to the agricultural fringe areas and they eat up all the agricultural produce. Then increasing human population is another cause, we can say, because it is actually increasing the pressure on the limited resources in the forest. So all these can be said as reasons for the man-animal conflict. Now what are the impacts? We can say it has multiple impacts. It has impact on ecosystem and biodiversity, because people for their self-defense they kill animals, or as a preemptive of retaliatory killings they actually cause harm to the animals. So it is actually affecting their biodiversity. Then we can say there is crop damage, obviously, animal death as we already mentioned, there is loss of human life, injuries to people, there is livestock depredation. So all these are the impacts of man-animal conflict. Now what is the way forward? So we all know there is no such complete eradicating of human-wildlife conflict possible, but we need a well-planned and integrated approach to this. So we can say relocation of human settlements from the fringes of forest areas is one solution. Then we can say we should promote ecotourism. Okay, then awareness programs to the people to sensitize them about the conflict, or to minimize the man-animal conflict. Then we can say we should curb the poaching of wild animals, because it actually brings in the equilibrium of prey and predators in the forest ecosystem. So they will not be pushed to come into the agricultural or the residential areas. Then we can check the habitat fragmentation due to urbanization and developmental activities. We can say new methods like constructing solar powered fencing, protection walls, biofencing, etc. For example, bee fences and all, or bee barriers and all, these can be used for warding away the elephants or animals from entering the agricultural residential areas. So these are certain initiatives in India and around the world to reduce the man-animal conflict. In India, we have an advisory for management of human-wildlife conflict. It was issued by the Standing Committee on National Board of Wildlife. Okay, there are certain things in that, you can go through that in detail, but one or two points are like it empowers the Gram Panchayat in dealing with the problematic wild animals. Okay, moreover, it provides insurance under the Pradhanmantri Fasal Bima Yojana for the crop compensation, okay, against the damage caused due to human-wildlife conflict. Now, for some state-specific initiatives, you can say the Uttarakhand government is carrying out biofencing. Okay, what is biofencing? It is nothing but growing various species of plants in the border areas. Okay, now the Sonitpur model, I hope you all might be knowing this. The Sonitpur model by the World Wildlife Fund, they are actually training the local communities on how to drive elephants away from the crop field safely. Now we can say methods like biofencing, as we already mentioned, the use of bees and hot peppers by the African villagers to ward away elephants is also one famous initiative. Now in the Western Ghat regions, the elephant tracking collars are embedded, okay, on the animals, and with the help of this collars, SMS chips automatically text the nearby residents warning them of the elephant movement. So this is actually very helpful for them. And we can say the Odisha Attardgarh Forest Division, they had started casting seed balls, or nothing but these are seeds which are planted inside different reserve forest areas to enrich the food stock of wild elephants. So all these are initiatives in India and around the world against the human-animal conflict. I hope it is clear. Now coming to the third topic for today, it is on Wednesday, India had joined the G20 Troika. What is Troika? It refers to the top grouping within the G20. That is, it has the current, previous and the incoming presidencies, which is Indonesia, Italy and India respectively. Clear? Now, India will assume the G20 presidency on December 1st, 2022 from Indonesia. So, now India is a G20 president for this year. Alright. Moreover, India will convene the G20 Leaders Summit for the first time in India in 2023. So, it is happening for the first time in India. Now, what is the theme for the next year's summit? Recover together, recover stronger. Okay. Now, certain facts about G20. We all know it is an informal group of 19 countries plus the European Union. Moreover, it has representatives of both IMF and the World Bank. Okay. And you should know it accounts for almost 85% of the world's GDP and 2/3 of its population. So, all these 19 countries and European Union together contribute to 85% of the world's GDP and 2/3 of its population. Alright. This summit is formally known by the name Summit on Financial Markets and the World Economy. So, this is nothing but G20 Summit. Okay. So, when was that formed? It was after the Asian financial crisis in 1997-98 that G7 finance ministers agreed to establish the G20. Okay. Now, you should know that there is no permanent staff of its own. So, every year in December, a G20 country from a rotating region takes on the presidency, and now it is India's turn to become the president. It does not have any permanent secretariat or headquarters. Okay, the first G20 meeting took place in Berlin in 1999, and please remember that India is a founding member of G20. Clear? Okay. Along with that, I want you to know what is G20 Plus. It is nothing but the G20 developing nations, also called G21, G23 or G20 Plus, etc. By various names it is called. It is nothing but a block of developing nations, but it is different from G20. It originated in the 5th Ministerial Conference of WTO, which was held at Cancun, Mexico. Okay. Along with that, from a mains point of view, please prepare on India and India's stake in G20 or India and G20. What is the significance? What are India's priorities and what are the challenges? All right. So, what are the priorities in G20 summit? We can say chalking of terror fronts, then reforms in the WTO for improving its functioning, then we can say checking of tax evasion to fight corruption. All these are India's priorities in the G20 summits. Now, coming to challenges, what are the challenges? We can say there is no enforcement mechanism. Okay, because this is basically based on consensus, and most of the decision taken in the G20 summits is not enforceable. So, the practical results of these discussions is a big question. And another challenge, we can say, it is not legally binding. The decisions are based on discussions and consensus. Okay, so the declarations are not legally binding. It is just an advisory or consultative group of 20 members. So, that is also another problem. And G20 is widely perceived to have failed to address global inequality. Okay, because in most of the member states, inequality is widening. So, it is obviously said G20 is not helping in addressing the global inequality. So these are the major challenges of G20. Now, along with that, the recent Rome Declaration on Climate Change and the G20 initiative on climate change, that is a Rome Declaration. Please go through that. Okay. So, moving to our last topic today, that is EU's Global Gateway project. What is this? This is nothing but European Commission's new plan to mobilize a 300 billion euro or $340 billion fund in public and private infrastructure investment around the world. Okay, it is seen as a response to the China's BRI, Belt and Road Initiative. So, what is this? This is nothing but a strategy or a plan which aims to develop land and sea infrastructure to better connect China to Asia, Europe and Africa for trade and development. Okay, so it is nothing but developing of land and sea infrastructure for better connectivity. Now, what it aims is mobilizing investments of up to 300 billion euros or $340 billion between the period of 2021 and 2027 from both private and public parties. So, it plans to strengthen Europe's supply chain, to boost EU trade, to help fight climate change. Moreover, it has focus on digitization, climate, energy, transport sectors, health, etc., and also on education and research. So, all these are the plans of Global Gateway project. Okay. What is the difference this has from the China's BRI initiative is that EU would ensure local communities is benefited from the infrastructure projects under Global Gateway. Okay, so that is all for today. I hope whatever we have discussed is clear to everyone. We'll all meet in the further sessions. Thank you.